a tailgate.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
More severe weather. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. Tornadoes reported in Louisiana and Alabama. One person dead in New Orleans, more injured as a tornado cuts a path of destruction. The worst of it appears to be in the Uribe area in St. Bernard Parish.
Maybe 10 seconds tops. I don't think it lasts that long. I come outside and it looked like Ukraine.
Images from the scene show homes destroyed, vehicles overturned.
There's heavy damage to multiple structures in the area. They have multiple injuries in the area. Most has been transported to the hospital, has been treated on the scene by first responders.
New Orleans Sheriff James Pullman says the Louisiana National Guard and state police are helping in recovery efforts. The same area was hit by the Category 4 Hurricane Ida late last summer. But 20 homes reported damaged in a suspected tornado touchdown in Moundville, Alabama. A tornado watch is posted for most of central and southern Alabama until 6 a.m. local time. The National Weather Service says strong to severe storms will be possible into the Ohio Valley and the southern mid-Atlantic on Wednesday. President Biden leaves on his European trip mid-morning Wednesday, headed for an emergency meeting of the NATO ministers in Brussels.
This war will not end easily or rapidly. For the past few months, the West has been united. The president is traveling to Europe to ensure we stay united, to cement our collective resolve, to send a powerful message that we are prepared and committed to this for as long as it takes.
National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan says the president is expected to announce more sanctions against Russia at the meeting on Thursday. Ukraine's President Zelensky charges Russian forces not only blocked a humanitarian convoy trying to reach the city of Mariupol with desperately needed supplies on Tuesday, but also took some of the rescue workers captive. America is listening to Fox News.
Pika's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing The Point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
13 hours of questioning Tuesday for Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson by the Senate Judiciary Committee, including her views on critical race theory.
It is an academic theory that is about the ways in which race interacts with various institutions. It doesn't come up in my work as a judge. It's never something that I've studied or relied on, and it wouldn't be something that I would rely on if I was on the Supreme Court.
Judge Brown Jackson denied that she's been soft on crime and defended some sentences she's handed down for child pornographers that fell well below federal sentencing guidelines set by Congress. Federal health investigators say sanitation issues are to blame for a big recall of baby formula.
The Food and Drug Administration says baby formula maker Abbott didn't maintain clean surfaces used in producing and handling its powdered formula that was linked to at least 2 infant deaths and several hospitalizations from a rare bacterial infection. Abbott recalled lots of 3 powdered infant formulas last month. FDA inspectors have been inspecting the Sturgis, Michigan facility since late January. Neither the FDA or company has explained what caused the contamination. The recalls have added to ongoing shortages of infant formula blamed on supply chain issues. Rich Dennison, Fox News.
Ford is recalling nearly 215,000 pickup trucks and large SUVs in the U.S. and Canada because brake fluid can leak and make it harder to stop them. The recall covers the F-150 from 2016 through 2018, as well as the Ford Expedition and Lincoln Navigator SUVs from 2016 and 2017. The search for clues into why a Chinese commercial jetliner suddenly nosedived into a mountainous area in southern China has been suspended over the threat of mudslides. Searchers had been using hand tools to comb the area for the voice and data recorders. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Back at it again with the Lenten season menu with Mezcla, giving you a variety of food you can enjoy and pick from, like the fish tacos, spicy buttered shrimp, parrotfish escabeche, lobster pad capral pasta, crab-crusted Chilean sea bass, and more. There you have options. Offered at Hagåtña location for lunch and dinner only at Mezcla. For reservations, call 671-479-2652. What are you waiting for? Let's go celebrate the Lenten season with Mezcla.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi y Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Help support those most in need. Team 26 is a civic group of residents on a mission to help Guam's homeless. The Hands Across the Island event is Saturday, March 26th. That'll have members walking mile by mile through many villages to simulate the struggles of our homeless community. You can support them through monetary donations. Docomo Pacific subscribers text the words Team 26 to 4357 or help to make a $10 donation with each text. Other donations can be made at GuamHomelessCoalition.org. Just note Team 26. Team 26. We got your back.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of our free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Yeah. I just want everybody to know that I'm not horsing around here. I really mean it. So here we go on another exciting, elucidating, educational episode of Tall Tales. Let's start right out with Demi Ikotny. Yeah, Demi Ikotny. It appears the Post is still on strike. So the Daily News is out there. You know, it's like you go to a boxing match and Jose rings the bell and the referee steps into the ring and one boxer steps into the ring. And even though he's the only boxer in the ring, he still can't win the fight.
Why does he keep hitting himself?
Yeah. Yeah, the boxer just gets out there and dances around and kind of makes a fool of himself. And then the bell rings and the match is over and he sits down and says, well, I got to work on my left jab, I guess. Yeah, the title of this one is Caution, Remain Alert, Practice Safety at All Times When Enjoying Guam's Waters. This past weekend, 2 fishermen were swept off the reef near the secluded Ulomnia Beach in Inilahan. The emergency call made that evening activated a search and rescue team made up of all sectors of first responders, from the fire department to the Coast Guard. And thanks to the technology, these emergency officials had the added support of drone operators from Aviation Concepts, who stepped up the search with aerial views of the rough waters that complicated the rescue. Although the drones helped emergency officials cover more of the search area efficiently, the extra support wasn't enough to save the fishermen, as GFT officials on Monday reported that the body of one of them was recovered not far from where he was last seen. Well, most fishers, what's a fisher? I know there's a bird called a kingfisher. We used to talk in terms of fishermen. We can't say fishermen anymore, so now we have to say fishers. How silly. Well, most fishers who frequent the area are aware of the dangers of rip currents and surf hazards on the eastern shores of Guam. The tragic circumstances upon our community today make clear that no matter how experienced and prepared we are, water accidents can happen anytime. We join the countless others from throughout Guam in sending heartfelt condolences to the family and friends of these fishermen. That's better. This tragedy further highlights the importance of reminding all on Guam to keep a close watch on marine and weather conditions when enjoying all that Guam's surrounding waters have to offer. It's equally important that we recognize first responders who risk their own lives to strengthen search and rescue operations. We're fortunate to have these brave souls ready to head fearlessly toward the danger, while everyone else is running the other direction to safety. Whether you're a visitor or longtime resident, or whether you're a competitive swimmer or a master pescador, water safety is an imperative that cannot be overlooked or taken for granted. As spring break rolls around and we begin looking towards summer vacations and the return of more visitors, it's critical for all of us to maintain a heightened sense of awareness when, rain or shine, we're enjoying days at the beach. Yeah, okay, well, I guess a little short of what I think an editorial is all about, but par for the course for the Daily News. Okay, let's shoot from there over to the card. Let me see who I got here in the, I got Mrs. Cruz, an appeal for Archdiocese abuse victims. I guess Mrs. Cruz is, I'll just maybe take her now ahead of the calendar, huh? She's not calling about any particular calendar item, just calling as a concerned tailgater. Mrs. Cruz. Buenas, Mrs. Cruz. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, Bob. Thanks for accepting my call. I just wanted to share something that has been bothering me and many more people in the Archdiocese or around my circle of friends. I know that there have been meetings and meetings galore trying to settle this bankruptcy and to compensate the victims of sexual abuse. But my main concern is I like to know just how are the abusers that are still alive and capable and able, maybe, how are they being asked to compensate, to help along with us? It's just adding victims upon victims, because I consider myself a victim because of the fact that they're asking me to help out with what abusers did, to pay out for them. And even my grants at school, their schools are being asked to help out, which is perfectly okay. We're all willing to help out. However, I would like to see the abusers pay out for what they did.
You'd like to see the abusers...
Where's the justice in there?
You'd like to see the abusers what?
The abusers also be part of compensating their victims. You know what I mean?
I do, yeah.
Because it seems to me that it's just the victims, which includes us, who are being asked to help out, and we're more than willing to help. But yet I never see or read anywhere where the abusers are being asked to do something to help out too.
Well,
why are they being excused on this whole mess?
Yeah,
They're either off enjoying everything. I don't know where they're at, but they're not being asked to put a penny in.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mrs. Cruz. I suppose the party that would have the ability to pursue the abusers for their share would be the current Archbishop. I don't know exactly how that would be formulated in the bankruptcy. It could very well be that the trustee in bankruptcy has a responsibility to pursue the abusers for what's called liability over, but that hasn't occurred, has it? But I share your concern. It's a good point, especially Archbishop Apparon, who, if we had to hang the responsibility around a single neck, it would be his, wouldn't it?
I know, yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about, because he's off someplace, having fun, maybe, I don't know, but at least free of all of his problems. And here we are shouldering everything.
Bob, if I may, Mrs.
Yes.
Cruz, this is Jose. One thing, and I know this is a very tiny pinpoint of light in this situation, is that the Archdiocese, specifically the Archbishop, has canceled all retirement and payments to both Anthony Apparon and what's his name, Cristobal. I don't know his first name. Adrian Cristobal.
Yeah, so they should be asked to pay all that back since they got found guilty.
Well, they haven't been found guilty in any court of law, but I believe
they were being paid by the Archdiocese.
Yeah, there are cases against both of them as individuals. I'm not sure what the progress is on that, but they both are. Apparon has not been laicized, and people use the word defrocked. So he's kind of under the purview of the Pope still. He's been prevented from celebrating any public mass and also prevented from conferring any sacraments. Unfortunately, I say this unfortunately about Cristobal, is that he has been laicized, which means he's pretty much a free man to continue to do whatever he was doing, and hoping if he is continuing, he does get caught. But that's the situation. They're not getting paid anymore from the Archdiocese. But as far as getting them to do reparations themselves, I don't think there's any legal way that the Archdiocese can do that.
Nevertheless, I just want to see and read or be informed that they are being made responsible for their abuse.
That's a very good point, Mrs. Cruz.
Unfair. There's no justice to that.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to have to go back to my my law books here and see what rights the bankruptcy estate would have against the people, the abusers that really caused the diocese to be in bankruptcy right now, Mrs. Cruz.
Mm-hmm.
Very good point.
Yeah, so I would appreciate it, because really a lot of people are sharing that. What is this all about? That somebody did the wrong, and I know that, we're all a collective member of the church and we should help, but not in this situation where only one side is being asked to help out.
Very good point, Mrs. Cruz.
So I thank you for allowing me to air out my concern, because it's been bothering me.
Well,
and I'm still waiting for something, to hear something like that.
We always welcome you on Tall Tales, Mrs. Cruz. You always make valuable contributions, and this time is no exception. Thanks for the call.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate it.
All right. So
Bye
long.
now. All right.
Mrs. Cruz, that's a really good point. There must be a way for the estate in bankruptcy to pursue the people that caused the damage. If we weren't dealing with bankruptcy, there's something called liability over, a third-party complaint. But I gotta hit the books on that one. Maybe I can come up with something for Mrs. Cruz tomorrow. Okay, well, I was about to start in the card when Mrs. Cruz called. That was good timing. If you want to call and do something that's a little bit off the beaten track, a good time to do it is between Zimmy Ikutny and the beginning of the card. Here's the card for today. Of course, we're going to start out with Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. We've got Public Law 36-34, again, that part of the show. I've got Ketanji versus CRT. Ketanji Brown Jackson, the nominee for the Supreme Court. I've got Savaris versus Dedido. Chotferus versus Garcetti. Andrew Santos versus Guam Waterworks Authority. Bankers versus marijuana. Ken versus a new word here for Tall Tales that Ken just coined, Calmacho.
Very interesting kind of blended marriage.
It does, yeah. So you take Calvo and Camacho and meld them, and you come up with Calmacho, the Calmacho ticket. And then I've got bankers versus, as you were, I got CCU versus the Public Utilities Commission, university versus free stuff I'm never going to get to today, that's for sure.
A very local card today.
Exactly. Yeah, except for Ketanji.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Loco.
A very local card. All right, so systemic racism, Paul Zerzan versus systemic racism. I think all I really need to do is just show you this picture and ask you, something's gone wrong here, Jose. I don't think I'm not.
Yeah, that's been happening for a while. I predicted the camera is frozen. Bob is not acting like a statue today.
Yeah, a lot of poise there on the part of the host. So what do we? Will it gradually?
I was told it would just go on and off like that.
It isn't something I said, is it?
No, you are not being a stiff today, Bob.
All right. Okay. Well, I was going to show you the systemic race, but obviously I can't do that because my camera is frozen. So if you're watching at home, I'm not suffering from some form of tsetse fly-induced disease, sleeping sickness. I did not turn around and look at Sodom and Gomorrah and turn into a pillar of salt. This is just a technical difficulty here, which we hope will clear up. If not, this would be a real good time to do a screen capture and take what you get from the screen capture down to the nearest framer and have it framed, hang it up in your living room. Okay, now something happened there, Jose. What did you do?
Trying to switch cameras here. Let's see what happens. Mm-hmm.
Well, we're still getting the subtitles.
Yeah, you're frozen on all the screens.
Okay, well, I guess we'll just have to make the best of it. So we are now changing our format. We are going off live Facebook and switching to Theater of the Air. So you're going to have to watch the pictures on the back of your eyelids here in your imagination. So imagine this really good-looking, tall guy with a marvelous gift of gab, the ability to keep you entertained all by himself for 2 straight hours. That's me. And if you want a little visual inspiration, peek at your screen and you'll see what I look like. All right, so we go next to Public Law 36-37. And this time it's the airport that makes the cut. And there's a notice of public hearing. in today's post. It says, notice of public hearing, intent to extend emergency contract. And this public hearing will take place on March 24 at 9 a.m. Rooms 1 and 2 of the terminal conference rooms, and by video conference and streamed via video via GIA website. And here's what we have for the agenda. Are you ready for this? The agenda: 1, call to order and attendance. 2, public comments. 3, adjournment. This could be a rather pretty fast meeting, don't you think, Jose?
It's over before it even started.
Yeah. Now, underneath that, there are about 3 inches of text. And this is what the text says. GIA's procurement of management and infrastructure support services to GIA's baggage conveyance system. What does that remind you of, Jose? Baggage conveyance system.
Mm-hmm. PAR.
Say again?
Hey, buddy.
There you go. Yeah. And we're back to the buddy system, which is referred to as services in the rest of this announcement, has been stayed by a protest and subsequent appeal to the Office of the Public Auditor. The public auditor dismissed the appeal, and the matter is currently pending before the Superior Court. Thus, the stay remains in place. On or about October 26, 2021, GIAA certified and determined the existence of an emergency due to the imminent potential for the interruption of services caused by the protest and pending appeal. The resulting threat to public safety, public health, safety, and welfare of passengers and users of the airport and the daily operations of the airport due to such disruption. On or about November 3, 2021, GIAA entered into a contract with Aircraft Services International Group, doing business as Menzies Aviation. Procured on an emergency basis in accordance with the Guam Procurement Law implementing regulations. The contract provided for an initial term of 30 days and has since been extended as allowed by law. GIAA previously convened a public hearing on December 22, 2021, in order to extend the contract beyond the first 90-day period. GIAA has again determined the need and thus it intends to extend the contract with Menzies for an additional 90-day period. The contract remains limited in scope and duration to meet the needs of the emergency. This is really interesting. So, you know, this was in the news a lot. And I'll bet you dollars to donuts that this will be the only news outlet or quasi-news outlet that's going to say boo about this. And it's important news. But, of course, I cheat, Jose. I read the paper.
How dare you?
I suspect that the folks that work at the Daily News and the Post don't even do that. So the interesting thing, though, is the way they formatted it. Call to order, public comments, adjournment, and then underneath that, you certainly can't fault them for not putting the public on notice as to what they're going to do. But the agenda doesn't say that they're going to entertain this. It's just there. I suppose that if this matter ever came to court, the court would tend to construe it in such a manner as to say, no, the meeting's not invalid. You did what the statute required. You're just really klutzy when it comes to laying out agendas, but we don't penalize klutziness. at least not in this case. So very interesting development. I wonder if JMI has seen this particular notice. Edison JMI, who was all over Menzies because they didn't have a contractor's license. Remember that?
Well, if I was them, I'd be pouring through the newspapers and reading them as well.
Absolutely. Okay, next item on the card is Ketanji versus CRT. Ketanji Brown Jackson. We'll come back to Ketanji right after this short break.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point. Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
And now, back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the one radio show politicians don't want you to listen to. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Well, okay, Tall Tales, all you tailgaters out there, I need your help on a really important matter. You see the front view of my face every day. And now the way we've got the camera set up, you see the profile. Tell me, which one of those two shots do you think shows the greatest degree of handsomeness? I'll let you post it on Facebook. Yeah. And I'm only asking this so in order to help me improve the show. You know, I'm not at all benedosu, and vanity is a word that isn't even in my vocabulary. And you know how proud I am of my humility. So whatever you think here. But that's me. And just looking at it from the side instead of from the front, because we got a problem with our camera here. Okay, Ketanji versus CRT. Now I got to spend a little time again talking about critical race theory. And should have kept that right on top here. We have our own critical race theory czar right here on the island. His name is Robert Underwood. And I'll look for it during the break. Robert Underwood told us in his column about 3 or 4 weeks ago that he has been teaching critical race theory since 1972. Now, let's just talk about teaching critical race theory, okay? Critical race theory is something that you practice. The word praxis, Praxis, comes into play. Because when you start talking about critical race theory, it's not like studying the Peloponnesian Wars or the Holy Roman Empire, where you gather a lot of facts. You are able to draw some conclusions from those facts. You can write papers about them, whatever. Critical race theory is not something that you study. It's something that you do. And the news is full of what people are doing in the name of critical race theory, separating fourth graders into two groups, white and non-white, and asking the white kids, okay, you need to explain to the class about white privilege and what you're doing to combat white privilege. This is what it's all about. Now, I have studied critical race theory myself. I know what it's about. I got into that article a couple days ago, and I'm going to be referring to it from time to time so that everyone will understand what critical race theory is, what it's about, what its goals are, and what an evil poison it is. But I am not one who teaches critical race theory. I'm not someone who is going to give you the lessons as to how to do it. Like, you know, if you were in military training, they teach firearms. Well, they don't just teach you about firearms. They teach you how to shoot a rifle. And it's the same thing with critical race theory. So taking that into consideration, this is going to be a really important issue as far as Ketanji Brown Jackson is concerned. And it's too bad, because when she was first appointed, I had a feeling that probably Joe Biden wasn't going to appoint a rock-ribbed conservative. I just kind of had that suspicion. I figured he'd appoint somebody over left of center. I was prepared to deal with that. Occasionally, lefty justices do fine, you know, and if you read the Scottish blog, you'll find that an awful lot of Supreme Court decisions are unanimous decisions, left and right notwithstanding. So when I first read about it, I thought, okay, that's what she is. I found out that she had a this is real diversity. She'd been a public defender, and she'd been a trial judge. None of the folks on the Supreme Court right now have sat on a trial court bench.
She's actually sat in more positions than I think all of them.
Yeah.
If you want to bring up
experience.
Experience.
Yeah. So she'd actually been a trial court judge. She'd been a public defender. She didn't go to Harvard or Yale. So to me, these are all plus points. And if we're really talking diversity, that's what we should be looking for. It's not healthy to have a Supreme Court bench that is made up entirely of judges. That's what we're stuck with now, because ever since a nominee got borked about 35 years ago, now nobody wants to entertain anyone who doesn't have a record of decisions.
And Senator Ted Cruz, that gave a really great history of that in the pre-hearing.
About
that.
How they borked that justice. Yeah, probably one of the most qualified people ever appointed to the bench. And if you ever wanted to know what Teddy Kennedy was all about, find out his speech at the confirmation.
Joe Biden was head of the committee at that time, too.
Exactly, yeah. So I started out with a pretty good impression of Ketanji. I thought maybe this is exactly what we need on the Supreme Court. I read a long write-up on Ketanji in the New York Times. Of course, I had to have a good-sized grain of salt handy when I was reading it, but her upbringing and her background and her approach to things seemed to be pretty admirable. I thought, well, maybe we're going to get something good out of this, until this critical race theory thing surfaced. And here's what we got. This is from Newsweek. Believe it or not, Newsweek.
You went from New York Times to Newsweek?
Yeah.
Do you have a fever, Bob?
Yeah. Well, of course, this is the headline. Ted Cruz trashed for grilling Ketanji Brown Jackson on CRT 1619 project.
Their definition of trash and grill is really different from the one that they had last time, where they absolutely didn't see it. With not just Kavanaugh, but I can't remember the latest one.
With Amy.
Amy, yeah.
Yeah, with Amy and with Kavanaugh especially, it wasn't trashed. The proper word was eviscerated. They attempted an evisceration. You know, this guy Kavanaugh didn't have any guts. Let's check and make sure. Senator Ted Cruz is being slammed online for interrogating Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson about critical race theory. How dare he? The Texas senator first took issue with references made to Nicole And then they misspelled her name. They say Nicole Jana Jones when her name is Nicole Hannah Jones. So they trashed the author of the 1619 study. The Texas Senator first took issue with reference made to Nicole Hannah Jones during a speech Jackson gave at the University of Michigan on Martin Luther King Day in 2020. Hannah Jones wrote the 1619 Project, which won the Pulitzer Prize. Quote, "It's not something that I've studied. It doesn't come up in my work," Jackson said about the 1619 Project. "I was mentioning it because it was, at least at that time, something that was talked about and well known to the students that I was speaking to at the law school." Cruz then moved on to discussing critical race theory, an academic framework that examines how race and racism function in various institutions. Now, one of the nice things about Newsweek and WAPO and some of these other people is that they could if they could get past the same-sex dimension of it, they could be cake decorators, because they are all really good at putting whipped cream on a pile of taki. That's the major undertaking. Yeah, Republicans have decried critical race theory, passing laws to ban the theory from schools. Jackson repeatedly emphasized that she has never studied critical race theory and that it doesn't apply to her work as a judge.
Well, that disqualifies her automatically.
Yeah.
On the left.
On the left, yeah. Yeah, she can't read. It wouldn't be something that I would rely on if I was on the Supreme Court. Bad grammar. If I were on the Supreme Court. Whoa.
Stop attacking her.
That's enough right there. Yeah, next thing she's going to be talking about Ted Cruz and referring to him as they. If confirmed, Jackson will be the first black woman. Do you think there's anybody on the entire planet Earth that doesn't know that? And probably if they're the Russians up there in outer space, oh yeah, is Klitzkie Brown nominated to Supreme Court as first black woman? Everybody in Soviet Union and Mother Russia know. Yeah. She'll be the first black woman to serve on the high court in its 233-year history. Lawmakers on both sides of the aisle celebrated Jackson's historic nomination during the first day of hearings on Monday. Twitter users quickly pounced on Cruz's statements, of course. "Oh man, after Ted Cruz's questions in this hearing, I'm very worried that Nicole Hannah Jones is not getting confirmed to the Supreme Court," wrote journalist Ian Millhiser. I'll give him credit for having a tall tale sense of humor. Another one. This is from Mehdi Hassan. "You'll be shocked to hear that Ted Cruz's line of questioning today is pretty odious. How dare he?
How dare you?"
Sawyer Hackett, co-host of the Our America podcast with former presidential candidate and Obama administration official Julian Castro, said Texas was thoroughly embarrassed by its senators during the second day of the hearings. All right.
Nope.
The Republican National Committee on Tuesday also attempted to tie Jackson to critical race theory. The committee posted a GIF. What is that? Some kind of an image, right?
It's a animated image.
Oh, okay. Depicting Jackson with her initials KBJ being crossed out and replaced with the initials CRT, meaning critical race theory. The committee was also criticized for the post, with many decrying that it is as racist. You know, I'd really like to get back into politics, because no matter how strong the other side argument is, and no matter how poorly I'm prepared, I've always got a 100% comeback. That's racist. And win every argument, right?
For people who want to say there's no CRT here, they use a lot of it when they come back with something.
Exactly.
It's racist.
That's racist. Critical race theory is being used as a slur against Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson, Kentucky's Charles Booker wrote on Twitter. For some politicians, it's the new way to say the N-word.
Nancy?
It's not right, and the Senate confirmation is too important. The American people deserve better. Democrat Congressman Eric Swalwell tweeted the committee, "Why do you hate black people?"
He's just full of gas.
Yes. Yeah. Now, here's something else. So, other views on the same subject. From Insta Pundit, Ketanji Brown Jackson told Ted Cruz she has never studied critical race theory, but she has cited the founder of critical race theory, not Robert Underwood, Derek Bell, and endorsed its core concepts, including white privilege and intersectionality, in her speeches. Is it okay for a Supreme Court Supreme Court nominee to kind of engage in tall tales type rhetoric without the beep beep? I've never studied critical race theory. Yeah, that's how you do it. In January 2020, KBJ delivered his speech at the University of Michigan Law School that utilized the core concepts of critical race theory, praised the father of critical race theory, Derek Bell, and derived its content almost entirely from the work of Bell's second wife, Janet Dewart Bell, a critical race theory activist who has been instrumental in promoting the ideology after her husband's death. Brown Jackson claimed that her parents had a copy of Derek Bell's book, Faces at the Bottom of the Well, a founding text of critical race theory, on their coffee table when she was growing up, and it served as a lifelong touchstone for her. The full quote from her speech. Dr. Janet Bell's late husband, Professor Derek Bell, who was a civil rights lawyer and the first tenured African-American professor at Harvard Law School, wrote a book in the early 1990s about the persistence of racism in American life that he entitled Faces at the Bottom of the Well. My parents had this book on their coffee table for many years, and I remember staring at the image on the cover when I was growing up. I found it difficult to reconcile the image of the person who seemed to be smiling with a depressing message that the title and subtitle conveyed. I thought about the book cover again for the first time in 40 years when I started preparing for this speech, because before the civil rights gains of the 1960s, black women were the quintessential faces at the bottom of the well of American society, given their existence at the intersection of race and gender, both of which were highly disfavored characteristics. Brown Jackson's story is a fabrication. Faces at the Bottom of the Well was published in 1992.
Not 72?
Yeah, 1972 was the year that was for critical race theory. When Brown Jackson was 22 years old and a student at Harvard, so her parents could not have had the book on their coffee table when she was a child. Derek Bell was a famous professor at Harvard Law School during the time that Brown Jackson was an undergrad at Harvard, so it's likely that Brown Jackson was familiar with him through her name on campus. During her speech, Brown-Jackson utilized the concept of white privilege and the intersection of race and gender, called intersectionality, two of the core ideas of critical race theory. Brown-Jackson makes use of the analytical framework of critical race theory throughout the speech. She also praises the 1619 project, which borrows from many of the concepts from critical race theory and applies them to historic narratives. I got a little bit more here, but I hate to keep people on hold for too long. It's probably another Joe. It's another Mark. Okay, well, we'll take a short break here, and we'll let the caller, who is another Mark, make his mark.
Back at it again with the Lenten season menu with Mezcla, giving you a variety of food you can enjoy and pick from, like the fish tacos, spicy buttered shrimp, parrotfish escabeche, lobster pad capral pasta, crab crusted Chilean sea bass, and more. There you have options. Offered at Hagåtña location for lunch and dinner only at Mezcla. For reservations, call 671-479-2652. What are you waiting for? Let's go celebrate the Lenten season with Mezcla. We're already Pica's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Okay, here we are, and we got another Mark here who's anxious to talk about Supreme Court confirmation. Go ahead, Mark. Another Mark.
Bob, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
You know, I've watched the last 3 confirmation hearings. This one it makes number 4. And if you watch the other senators, the Democratic senators, watch their facial expressions and all that good stuff. While the Republican senators were making their comments yesterday, they stood out and could not say a word about how these hearings are going to be, because they totally tore up the last 3 based on assumptions and not facts. So now they've got KBJ out there, and they're going, they're coming up with facts. Now all of a sudden the Democratic senators are saying, well, if you question her background, if you question her history, then you're racist. But they won't provide any more background into her history. Durbin sat there and refused to submit to the Republican senators the history of her while she was on the board, the sentencing board. You know, so she, after yesterday's introductions, they gave her what they were going to ask her. I give it to her. The lady was presentable. The lady was very knowledgeable, but still was almost like swimming in what do you call that, quicksand, because her answers, either she's blaming Congress and she's slapping Congress in the face with her answers, or it will not have anything to do with my job on the Supreme Court. I mean, every question, her CRT response. They questioned Barrett about her being on the board of a Christian school, private school. When they questioned KBJ about her being on the board of a school that had CRT literature all over the place, her response was, it's a private school. So all of a sudden, you have, it's a private school that she cannot comment on because it has nothing to do with her job as a judge. I mean, I sat there, started laughing because it's like, okay, don't question me about anything I've done. I sentencing guidelines that I didn't follow. You know, my rhetoric as a defense lawyer for Gitmo, you know, what I did, what I said, you cannot count that towards my my being presented as a Supreme Court nominee. And it was just hilarious watching it. And then after the breaks, you see senators running outside to talk to lawyers. Not one senator, Democrat on the Democrat side, would comment about the treatment they gave the previous three compared to this one. And they're pounding on the Republicans, saying that to question her history, her background, is racial. When, to be honest with you, her selection was racial. Because the only thing that the Democrats want is they want to be the first one, or be the ones to appoint the first black judge. There was a judge a few years ago that had a chance. He was black. And they tore him up and refused to accept his nomination because in a memo that was leaked, their excuse was the Democrats wanted to be the first ones to appoint a black judge. So this, I give KBJ all the credit in the world. She is accomplished. All right? But at the same token, she has to answer for her history, like the other previous judges have. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Mark. But you know, what we're really talking about here is standards. And the Democrats, you know, pay a lot of attention to standards. And they will tell you that a double standard is twice as good as just a single standard. That's why they always use it.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I'm sitting there laughing at all the Democrat senators that are questioning it. They're not questioning KBJ. They are fawning over her. Cory Booker came short of kissing this lady's butt in national TV. Maybe he's looking for a date because he got dumped by what's her name. I don't know. But to sit there and swoon over this nominee. I mean, swoon. This guy was like, I'm on cloud nine because I'm talking to KBJ. No, it just points out, like you said, the standard, the double standard that they have. Don't question me because I know better. And granted, she is going to be, she probably will be nominated. She will be confirmed. But it's a wash. They got rid of one progressive retired, not got rid of, I'm sorry. One progressive retired, and they're only replacing him with another progressive.
True enough,
this
Mark.
right now is just a theater.
All good points, Mark. Thank you very much for calling our time. I'm glad you've been monitoring this for us. Keep us informed, okay?
Yeah, you take care, Bob.
Good talking to you, Mark. That's another Mark. Boy, these Marks are all good, aren't they? I haven't heard a Mark yet that doesn't make his mark.
He was very detailed on what the hearing was all about.
Absolutely.
I think I heard some commentary where people are wondering what is her judicial philosophies, but all she's been given is her methodology or her what they call procedural philosophy, which everybody has because that's how you do.
That's how judges work.
Judges work.
Yeah. So. Of course, ever since that nominee got borked, judges are extremely careful. They hold their cards very close to their chest.
And she's no exception.
And I suppose that in a way is the way it's supposed to be. But when the committees go so far into collateral matters, like a picture in somebody's high school yearbook.
Do you like beer?
Do you like beer? All of this stuff about critical race theory is absolutely 100% on point because those of us who have studied critical race theory, which I have, I'll raise my hand. I don't practice it. I don't do it. I think it's an evil, but those of us who have studied it know comes from Karl Marx. It's just a form of communism. All right, let's break for the big halftime show, and we'll come back to Judge Ketanji Jackson.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Heavy tornado damage. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News, as twisters rip through New Orleans, lifting this man off the ground.
When it hit, I could feel it, and then it went to pull me. My feet started coming off the ground, and I pushed my son down, and then it was gone, and my feet hit the ground again.
He and his son are okay, but several homes and businesses were destroyed or heavily damaged.
People are really just shocked and devastated, especially because we just went through Hurricane Ida. So people were just starting to rebuild their homes. They were just starting to feel like they were getting their feet on the ground when this happened.
Amanda Roberts of Fox 8 in New Orleans reports at least one person has been killed, several others injured. Tornado damage also reported in Moundville and Summerdale in Alabama. 1 month in, Russia's ground invasion of Ukraine appears to be largely stalled. And Pentagon spokesman John Kirby says in some areas, Ukrainian troops are now on offense.
They have been defending very smartly, very nimbly, very creatively in places that they believe are the right places to defend. And we have seen them now in places, particularly in the south, near Kherson. They have tried to regain territory.
President Biden departs this morning for the emergency NATO meeting tomorrow in Brussels, where he is expected to announce another round of Russian sanctions. The Senate Judiciary Committee will continue its confirmation hearing today for Supreme Court nominee Judge Ketanji Brown Jackson. In questioning yesterday, she denied going easy in sentencing defendants convicted of child pornography.
In every case, I did my duty to hold the defendants accountable in light of the evidence and the information that was presented to me.
Judge Brown Jackson says she believes she has a duty as a judge to stay in her lane by interpreting the law, but not making the law. America is listening to Fox News.
Help support those most in need. Team 26 is a civic group of residents on a mission to help Guam's homeless. The Hands Across the Island event is Saturday, March 26th. That'll have members walking mile by mile through many villages to simulate the struggles of our homeless community. You can support them through monetary donations. Docomo Pacific subscribers text the words Team 26 to 4357 or help to make a $10 donation with each text. Other donations can be made at GuamHomelessCoalition.org. Just note Team 26. Team 26. We got your back.
A city that nearly defunded its police department is now considering pay raises for its cops.
A Minneapolis City Council committee discussed the new police union contract that proposes raises and incentives for officers in a city where activists had called to defund police after an officer murdered George Floyd. Some council members had pointed questions about the role of discipline in a new contract for the city's labor relations director, Holland Atkinson. One councilman asked him if officer retention was the main goal of the new contract.
I would characterize it as obviously a central theme
especially considering during the arc of this negotiation we had such a precipitous decline in officers.
The committee voted to send the matter to the council without a recommendation as to how to vote. Jessica Rosenthal, Fox News.
A terrible car crash in southern Oklahoma yesterday has left 6 teenage girls dead. They were passengers or the driver in a car that collided with a large truck on a highway in Tishomingo, about 100 miles southwest of Oklahoma City. Saying shooters want the notoriety, a judge in Michigan has ruled that accused high school shooter Ethan Crumbley won't be referred to by name in the upcoming trial of his parents on involuntary manslaughter charges. James and Jennifer Crumbley are accused of allowing their son access to the gun which police say he used to kill 6 students in late November. Miami trying to curtail spring break partying that police say has gotten out of hand.
City commissioners have voted unanimously to keep the curfew in place through at least Monday. It takes effect early Thursday, just after midnight. The city manager has been given the authority to stop liquor stores and other retailers from selling alcohol. Over the past week or so, there have been 2 shootings in the South Beach neighborhood that wounded 6 people. City leaders acknowledge they could be sued by businesses who typically make lots of money this month, but they maintain safety as the top priority. Tom Rigotti, Fox News.
And I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Half a day. This is Jade Uggan from Security Title, and in celebration of Tomorrow Month, here is a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of giving part of your property to your child or another family member. Once you have subdivided the property and recorded the map, you will also need to record the deed transferring the title. Just drawing the map is not enough to make sure they actually own the land. Protehi I Tanonmu. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
We're already Pika's best radio station, but we're always looking for ways to be even better. Announcing the point on Alexa. In addition to our FM and HD radio feeds, our incredible app, informative website, Facebook Live, and YouTube Live, you can now tell Alexa to stream The Point. And your smart speaker will start playing whatever we're saying. News and views 24/7 with your 4-word command. Alexa, stream The Point.
Hey, what did the grilled cheese sandwich say to their date?
What'd they say?
You make me melt.
Oh, so cheesy.
But not as cheesy as Subway's latest Eat Fresh, Refresh menu innovation. The new Fresh Melts with 3 times the cheese. Fresh Melts are the cheese lover's holy grail. Fresh Melts combine freshly baked breads and your favorite meats topped with a triple load of cheese. All grilled to warm, toasty perfection. Try the ham and cheese melt, tuna melt, or steak and cheese melt to start. Best of all, you can make any footlong into a fresh melt. At Subway, eat fresh.
Okay, the big halftime show here on Tall Tales, as usual, a real treat. And if you just tuned in, please don't think that I'm angry at tailgaters out there in our international radio listening audience. So angry that I'm turning my back on you. It's just that our number one camera here, our front view camera, is not working today, so we have to use this camera back here. I'll turn from time to time, so you'll be sure you're watching the right program. But that's why it looks like I've got my back turned to you. Sorry about that, but we do what we do with what. Let's see, how do we say that? We do what we can with what we have where we are. That's Tall Tales. The show must go on. A little thing like a non-functioning camera is not going to stop us. Okay, so we're back to Ketanji Brown and Ketanji Brown Jackson and critical race theory and her confirmation to the Supreme Court. I'm just going to tell you flat out, critical race theory is poison. It is absolute poison. And anyone who comes along and says, I believe in critical race theory, I think we should practice critical race theory, is poisonous as far as I'm concerned. And I don't want that person holding those ideals to hold any public office. Now, of course, I grew up during the Cold War, grew up during the Second World War, actually, but in the Cold War, you know, we had communists, and we had a Communist Party USA, CP USA. And over folks on the left would say, you know, a party is a party. There are Democrats, there are Republicans, there are communists. So what? Why is that a big deal? A party is a party. The Communist Party is not a party. The Communist Party is an ideology that you must buy into 100%. And the tenets of being a member of the Communist Party, of being a good communist, are that you can lie and cheat and do all kinds of things that we wouldn't tolerate in any other circumstance, because the cards are so stacked against the lower class, the workers, by the bourgeoisie, that it's the only way you can prevail, the only way you can survive. So critical race theory is just a later day evolution of Marxism, and I'll spend a little time on that, bringing you up to speed on the whole critical race theory. I have already, but there's more to tell. And it's the same with critical race theory. There are oppressors and there are oppressed, and the oppressors hold so much power and control the framework of the culture to such an extent that the oppressed have to use extraordinary means to prevail and win the day and bring about the Marxist paradise that they all deserve.
Does this also include that much talked about book from Obama's era, The Rules for Radicals by Klitzkie?
I have read the Rules for Radicals, and no, it doesn't, believe it or not. Rules for Radicals is it's not a what to do book, it's a how to do it book. And it's as useful for conservatives as it is for lefties. Now, Klitzkie has written some other things that are what to do, not how to do, but Rules for Radicals is pretty well put together. And it lays out some pretty important strategies if you would want to have influence in public affairs. But, you know, if Ketanji Brown Jackson is tainted by CRT, I don't want her on the Supreme Court. The more brilliant she is, the more dangerous she is. And I laid out at the beginning that I thought she's going to be okay. You know, we're going to get a liberal from a Democrat president. We can handle that. We can live with that. But not someone who has imbibed from the magic cup of critical race theory. Now, I've got another publication here put out by a guy named Mitch McConnell. And this is quotations. Judge Jackson told students in a 2015 legislature lecture that critical race theory influences sentencing policy. Quote, I also try to convince my students that sentencing is just plain interesting on an intellectual level, in part because it melds together myriad types of law, criminal law, of course, but also administrative law, constitutional law, critical race theory, negotiations, and to some extent even contracts. And if that's not enough to prove that sentencing is a subject worth studying, I point out that sentencing policy implicates and intersects with various intellectual disciplines, as well as including philosophy, psychology, history, statistics, economics, and politics. So she was on the United States Sentencing Commission.
Yeah, when did she say that? Where's that quote from?
This is a lecture that she gave.
So it's before the hearings then?
Yes. Oh, yeah, 2015.
Which makes the questioning of her sentencing very legitimate.
Exactly. Yeah. If CRT is part of the sentencing and she taught this, gave this at a lecture, and she was on the U.S. Sentencing Commission, which was appointed by the president, confirmed by the Senate, to come up with recommendations to Congress as to what to do with federal sentencing guidelines.
Did you hear her answer when she was asked about her sentences that were below recommended and even the base guidelines? It's not me, it's Congress. They set the guidelines to how we are able to sentence, so I'm not bound by any set procedure. None of what she quoted here, she said in her hearing.
No.
Nothing from the Sentence Hearing Committee, just it's Congress, it's not me.
Yeah. And in a 2020 lecture, Judge Jackson cited a book that influenced the creation of critical race theory as an important part of her childhood. She's already been outed on this one, right? During the same 2020 lecture, Jackson cited the late Derek Bell, whose works influenced the creation of CRT, and said his 1993 book, Faces at the Bottom of the Well, The Permanence of Racism, was an important part of her childhood. Now, this is bad because she's telling a lie, right? It couldn't have been a part of her childhood. The dates don't match up. So that's bad. But it's even worse when she will pull something like this to shed light on what her thoughts really are. She wanted these students to know this. You know, something like, maybe you guys ought to read this book too. Judge Jackson's Sentencing Commission's records would shed light on whether she used critical race theory to influence sentencing policy, but Democrats have rushed ahead with a hearing before the records could be produced for the judiciary hearing. Move along. There's nothing to see over here. Chuck Grassley, Republican from Iowa. I was disappointed we weren't able to get bipartisan agreement to ask Judge Jackson's documents from her time as vice chair of the Sentencing Commission. The commission is an independent agency to create and advise and assist Congress and the executive branch. Unfortunately, it sounds like we'll have to wait until those documents are required to be released 20 years from now. The White House and the Democrats keep saying Judge Jackson's Sentencing Commission experience is central to her resume for the Supreme Court. But still we haven't seen any internal records from her work there. We get these records for other Scottish nominees. Why not Judge Jackson? Well, we know why.
And we're not hearing this from the activist media or the legacy media either.
Right. Yeah.
This is why we don't trust them.
Exactly. During a 2020 lecture, Judge Jackson praised the 1619 Project. This is Hannah Jones. You know, and it's garbage. I haven't read it all, but I read enough to rule on it. It's garbage. She talks about the 31 slaves that were brought to Jamestown. 31 slaves were not brought to Jamestown. 31 indentured servants, along with some white indentured servants, were brought. Slavery didn't come along till the judge made a ruling over 40 years later. So if you can't get facts like this right, what have you done to the rest of it? And of course, it's clear what she's done to the rest of it. She's just fudged it every place to turn it into a CRT exercise.
This is a pattern we see in everyone who touts this crap.
Exactly. Historians have flagged the project for incorrect statements and interpretations, as it argues that America's true founding was not in 1776, but 1619, when the first slaves were taken to Virginia. Judge Ketanji Brown, Biden's Supreme Court nominee, praised the controversial 1619 Project and its author, Nicole Hannah Jones, during a Martin Luther King Jr. Day address at the University of Michigan 2 years ago. So she's already on the bench at the Court of Appeals. In January 2020 lecture titled Black Women Leaders in the Civil Rights Movement Era and Beyond, Jackson described Hannah Jones as an acclaimed investigative journalist and highlighted Hannah Jones' provocative assertion that the America that was born in 1776 was not a perfect union that it purported to be. We all know that. But that, if they see this, as I keep pointing out, this is classic critical race theory. Take something from 1776, judge it by today's manners, morals, and ethics, condemn it. Tell everybody that that was then, but it's still now because of systemic racism, and it continues right on down till today. You can't fix it. It's so irreparably broken that you can't fix it, you can't fine-tune it, you can't repair it. You've got to junk it, and you've got to come up with another ideology for the country, and that ideology is called anti-racism, and that is diversity, inclusion, and equity. We all know how that works. I think Klitzkie ought to know how it works. When she heard President Biden really slander her by saying, "I'm going to appoint a black woman to the Supreme Court." First frame. Second frame, I'm appointing Ketanji Brown Jackson to the Supreme Court. Not because she's the best or because she's very well qualified or because I like her, or because she makes good cookies, because she's a black woman. Yeah. The only thing she's got going for her that that Biden's vice president doesn't have going for her is that there's no Willie Brown in Ketanji's life. Sorry about that, Kamala. Kamala said Willie Brown was an albatross around her neck. It took her 20 years to figure that one out.
It was not a significant passage of time.
Passage of time is, as time passes, we must remember the passage of time, because the passage of time occurs right now. Yeah. Okay, here's more quotes from Ketanji. This same theme resounds throughout 1619. This is her words. The popular new historical accounting published by the New York Times, acclaimed investigative journalist Nicole Hannah Jones, who happens to be a black woman, explains that the men who drafted and enacted the Constitution founded this nation on certain ideals: freedom, equality, democracy. Yet at the time they formulated these principles, the institution of slavery already existed in the colonies ever since the year 1619, when 20 to 30 Africans who had been captured in their homeland arrived in the colonies by ship and were exchanged for goods.
Does she ever say who captured them? I don't think so.
Sometimes the narrative is too good to check on the facts. Jones highlights the story of the situation even further when she notes that the very moment that Thomas Jefferson penned the self-evident truths of the Declaration of Independence, a black relative, a slave, had been brought into his office to serve him. Thus, it is Jones' provocative thesis that America that was born in 1776 was not the perfect union that it purported to be, and that is actually only through hard work, struggles, and sacrifices of African Americans over the past 2 centuries that the United States has finally become the free nation that the framers touted. She's going to be on the Supreme Court. Classic critical race theory foundation. This is how you start out, with the historical event. She goes on to say, in one especially poignant segment of the podcast, John says, "We are raised to think about 1776 as the beginning of our democracy. But when that ship arrived on the horizon in 1619, the decision made by the colonists to purchase that group of 20 to 30 human beings, that was the beginning too." It's like Hattori, Anne Paris Hattori trying to really slam Downs versus Bidwell, and copying something out of Downs versus Bidwell, and not copying it right, out of context first, but not even accurate copying, and that's Nicole Hannah-Jones. She doesn't
got
even
the words down Bidswell correct, and insert cases correct.
Yeah.
The rest of it
is gone. Hannah-Jones' 1619 project at the New York Times Magazine is an ongoing initiative seeking to reframe the country's history by placing the consequences of slavery and the contributions of Black Americans at the very center of our national narrative. Hannah-Jones won a Pulitzer Prize for commentary last year for the project and was named to Time's list of 100 most influential people. Historians have flagged the project for incorrect statements and interpretations. 5 academic historians signed a letter claiming the 1619 project got several elements of history wrong, including a claim that the Revolutionary War was fought to preserve slavery. Of course, the Times has defended the project. They're going to do the right thing there as soon as they finish with Hunter Biden's laptop. Yeah, so I'm sorry, Ketanji. I started out with a positive impression of you. You are a flawed individual, something like that. That's part of your job, is to tell lies for the party. Now, this is not for the party, but it is a Marxist undertaking, and the aim of critical race theory is to overthrow capitalism and our democratic system and bring about a Marxist socialist state. So don't do that in my Supreme Court, Ketanji. Excuse me, in our Supreme Court, Ketanji. Okay, next is Tavares versus Dededo. I suppose we should go to the 7th inning stretch first, Jose.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
Hi, I'm Jerry Roberts, and every day on The Ray Gibson Show, I get to comment on the incredibly diverse, fun, challenging, sometimes frustrating, often exciting, but always interesting world of work. I hope you'll be there with us.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point. Listen to The Point anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Find your favorite stations like The Point and discover more. Music stations, local and trusted news sources, sports talk and team coverage, plus today's biggest podcasts. Find it all on the Odyssey app. AUDACY.
So here we are, Chicago, Wrigley Field, the 7th inning stretch. Everybody should stretch out a little bit here. I've got 2 more innings to go. I was peeking at Facebook here during the break, and J.P. Mospahaki says, do they, meaning the CRT folks, not see the obvious racism in CRT? Are they simply ignoring it, or are they one special ice cream refrigerator short of a Pelosi? Yeah, I don't know about that. That sounds like something I'd say.
They're full on Pelosi.
Yeah, very good. Yeah. And J.P. Mospahaki, of course they see it. And when you ask somebody like Ibram X. Kendi, better known as Ben Rogers, what the remedy is, he says more racism, diversity, inclusion, equity, especially equity, because if there's a job like, take our legislature here, you have the legislature, well, maybe not the legislature, but occupations have to reflect the demographics of the community. So if 13% of people in a particular community are African American, then 13% of the jobs must go to African Americans. More is okay, but that's the absolute minimum. And I think he's absolutely right. And when the CRT folks start working on a National Basketball League, I'll be right there with them on that one. Okay, so much for critical race theory and Ketanji Brown Jackson. Next on the card is Savaris versus Dedido. Now, Melissa Savaris is the mayor of Dedido. And here's the story that ran in today's Daily News. Dedido mayor's son charged in connection to shooting man with BB gun. Maybe I should have handled this in the Second Amendment part of the show, right? So, you know, when I read that, I thought, they're charging him with shooting with a BB gun. What, is there some rule that if you're going to shoot somebody, it's got to be a gun? It's got to be a firearm? The Dedido mayor's son was charged in connection to shooting a man with a BB gun 13 times. Wow, that's
unlucky.
Yeah. No wonder they arrested him. He should have stopped at 12. He'd have been okay. On Sunday, a man told police Daniel Vincent Savaris shot him with a BB gun, according to a magistrate's complaint filed in Superior Court. The man said he recognized Savaris to be the mayor's son, Daniel. How's that song go? If we weren't Facebooking, we could play that song, Daniel, right?
Oh, Danny boy.
Or Danny boy. Yeah. Officers were able to see 13 indentations and dried blood throughout the man's body and a BB lodged in the man's chest, according to the complaint. This is a pretty strong BB gun.
Must have been a Red Ryder.
Yeah, well, I got a Red Ryder at home, and I don't think it's that strong. I wonder if I could find out where they bought that one. The man was talking with officers when he noticed Savaris' truck driving by. Officers flagged him down. Savaris got out of the truck, identified himself, and said he was happy he was flagged down. He said he and his mother were chasing the homeless out of the parks. Well, good for them. It's a good thing that somebody's doing something about the homeless. Chasing the homeless out of the parks, my gosh. And the Guam Police Department needed to assist them. Hey, you guys, as soon as you finish your donuts, can you help us chase the homeless out of the park? Savaris said. Savaris said he questioned a man outside a neighbor's apartment and was unsatisfied with his responses. He told the officer he always carries something like a BB gun or a knife.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
For protection. The complaint stated, the officer read Savaris his Miranda rights and asked if he shot the man. Savaris looked up at the sky, clenched his jaw, remained silent, and refused to answer, the complaint stated. I wonder if this Savaris knows Amanda Shelton. He knows what to do with somebody. I got the next session of the legislature, I can see Amanda Shelton, instead of saying I pass, look up at the ceiling, clench her jaw, and remain silent.
He pulled a Savaris.
He did. After being handcuffed, Savaris began thrashing around and yelled, "You can't do this to me. I got acquitted the last time I did it." The perfect defense.
Can I quote you on that?
A perfect defense. This reminds me of the old story about the the criminal defendant, the bank robber, who insisted on defending himself because he didn't trust lawyers. So the lawyer, the robber is cross-examining the bank teller. And he says to the bank teller, I heard you tell the district attorney that you knew it was me that robbed the bank. Isn't that correct, ma'am? Yes, it is. How could you tell that it was me when I was wearing a mask? Yeah, you can't do this to me. I got acquitted the last time I did it. I wonder if this guy's going to run for the legislature. Yeah. Savaris told the officer the rifle was hit. Wait a minute. Savaris later told officers he shot the man twice, and police found a BB gun and pellets, as well as a rifle at Savaris' home. Good thing for the victim that Savaris took the BB gun and not the rifle, right? Savaris told officers the rifle was his, but he said he found it and intended to surrender it to GPD. You know, if you go out walking along the highway and stuff like that, I find a lot of stuff out there, beer cans, cigarette butts, hubcaps, rifles, you know, it's just the normal stuff you see along on the shoulders of the roads here on Guam. I don't know why the mayor doesn't pick this crap up, you know. The GPD officer pointed out that was on a Wednesday, and it was now Sunday, and the rifle hadn't been reported, the complaint stated. Savaris then confirmed the rifle was not registered to him, and he does not have a firearms ID card, the complaint stated. Well, why would he need a firearms ID card if he's only shooting people with a BB gun? Just like he did the first time. They didn't get him for no firearms ID that time. Man, I tell you, our courts are really something, aren't they? Savaris was charged with 2 counts of aggravated assault as a third-degree felony, with special allegations of deadly weapon used in the commission of a felony. A BB gun is a deadly weapon. Possession of a firearm without a firearm ID card as a third-degree felony. Possession of an unregistered firearm as a third-degree felony. Incurable stupidity as a no. Yeah. Savaris was previously charged with aggravated assault in September 2020 after a man was shot with a BB gun, court documents stated. At the time, Savaris told police he shot at the man twice with the BB gun, documents stated. We don't know what happened, but we know that Savaris figured he got a pass. He tested it out and it worked, so it's just not fair to bust him now. Okay, here's another interesting part of this. This is for a short story, this is really a good one, isn't it? Couldn't we have something like this every day?
Please.
Here's another good part. Savaris was employed at the Dadido mayor's office at the time. Yeah. And was charged with aggravated assault and reckless conduct. According to staffing patterns, Savaris is employed at the Dadido mayor's office as a marksmanship instructor. No, as a recreation leader. You know, going out and shooting your BB gun at tin cans, that's a lot. I used to do that when I was a kid. That's a lot of fun. Dadido Mayor Melissa Savaris said Tuesday she did not know the details of her son's arrest. Plausible deniability. Hello, Mom. This is Daniel. I just got Stop, Daniel. I don't want to hear any more about it. I want to have plausible deniability. If you ever get out of jail, tell me what happened. But I don't want to know about it now. So we have the mayor of Dadido, and one of her employees said that the mayor, Savaris' mother, and he were chasing homeless people out of the park with their BB gun. That's the beginning of the story. Remember?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-huh.
This incident.
Yeah.
Was it the first incident also?
I don't know. Probably. Savaris got out of the truck, identified himself, and he said he was happy he was flagged down. And it makes sense when you hear what he said. He said he and his mother were chasing the homeless out of the parks. Mayor Savaris. And the Guam Police Department needed to assist them, the complaint said. All they had was BB guns. The cops carry pistols. So come on, you guys, give us a hand here. So there's just something here for everybody to like. A really dumb criminal. Some really interested pleading. All right, I did it before, and I didn't get busted that time. And then, of course, nepotism. And Jose, you know that a lot of people get pretty upset about nepotism in our government, and I guess they're just not familiar with my ruling on nepotism. Nepotism is okay so long as you keep it in the family. Yeah, otherwise not so hot. So let's see, if I got the mayor of Dedido, no, it's Phil, about BB gun incident. Phil wants to talk about the BB gun incident. Go ahead, Phil.
Hey, Bob.
Sir.
Or Mr. Klitzkie, sir.
Yeah.
No, you mentioned about the law. I just caught a few. I'm out in the yard and the radio's
Uh-huh.
pretty loud, so I heard something about third-degree felony, possession of a firearm without a firearms ID. Is that correct?
That's right, yeah.
So I was wondering, if the incident with former Lieutenant Governor Ray Tenorio, who didn't have a firearms ID, and gained possession of the officer's firearm, isn't that possession of a firearm without a firearms ID?
That's exactly what I said on Tall Tales. Exactly what I
So
said.
then he did it twice. Isn't that 2 counts?
Arguably, yeah.
So my question is this: why didn't the AG charge him on a third-degree felony instead of misdemeanor charges?
You know, Phil, you could ask me how we could bring about peace in the Ukraine, how to solve the problems between Israel and the Palestinians, and I could give you pretty good answers for those. But when you're asking me about the how to get the Attorney General to enforce the law, I got to put that one in my too hard folder, Phil.
And wasn't the Attorney General at the time a former attorney and judge, I believe?
And what?
Wasn't the AGs at the time during the incident that was also a lawyer and also was a judge?
Of course, the Attorney General was a lawyer, and she was a judge, Elizabeth Barrett Anderson. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And surprising, there was no arrest. I guess if that was Doug, probably it'd be a different story.
I have a feeling it would be. You know, I've gone through this before. You know, when Doug was Attorney General, he'd prosecute anybody for anything, and then the next Attorney General wouldn't prosecute everybody for anything, and the next Attorney General wouldn't prosecute anybody at all. And that's kind of how the office petered out. So we got to the point where nobody gets prosecuted for anything. But the Attorney General does do suits for declaratory judgment.
And it became an elected position, so he's technically supposed to be representing the people of Guam?
Well, I had high hopes for the office when it became elected, because the theory in the past was that since the governor appointed the Attorney General, that every governor that came along would appoint someone that he could play like a cheap violin. So we thought it'd be better to have an elected Attorney General, but it didn't turn out that way, did it?
No, and I am very disappointed, and I hope someone comes around that will represent the people of Guam.
Well, Doug says he's going to give it a shot, so.
I surely hope so, because I'm requiring your guidance on who to support.
Well, he hasn't made it official yet, but I got my fingers crossed, put it that way.
I hope so, too. Thank you.
Okay, good talking to you, Phil.
All right.
Just a bit of clarification.
Yeah.
The Tenori incident was the first incident, so probably like Savaris, he probably would have been acquitted.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So, this is number 2 for Savaris.
You know, they always say when it comes to dog bites, every dog is a free bite. It's only the second time the dog bites somebody that counts. So you can shoot somebody. Apparently, the Savaris gloss on assault is, if you got a BB gun, go ahead and shoot somebody once, but the second time you may get busted.
Is the firearms charge the BB gun, or there was another?
The rifle that they found.
The rifle, okay.
That he found.
They didn't say what caliber or anything.
No,
or what it was. Okay.
Doesn't matter. It could be a .22 caliber single shot rifle. It doesn't matter.
I'm just wondering because I lost my blank space caliber rifle.
You lost what?
Just kidding. I lost a rifle in the jungle. It fell out of my pocket.
Oh, okay. So let's head for Churchill Downs, and we'll come back to Chotfris versus Garcetti.
Back at it again with the Lenten season menu with Mezcla, giving you a variety of food you can enjoy and pick from, like the fish tacos, spicy buttered shrimp, parrotfish escabeche, lobster pad capral pasta, crab crusted Chilean sea bass, and more. There you have options. Offered at Hagatna location for lunch and dinner only at Mezcla. For reservations, call 671-479-2652. What are you waiting for? Let's go celebrate the Lenten season with Mezcla.
Always here to help you. This island is our home. Through the years, we've been a friend to the neighbors we have known. Now we're banking on the future. More services to choose. Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Okay, here we are back again, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky. It's a couple more furlongs, and I'm done with a horse race today. I'll be crossing the finish line. And how appropriate to have a veterinarian here with me in the paddock at Churchill Downs to make sure that my mount is in proper shape to run the race. Good afternoon, Dr. Poole.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, Judge. Thank you. On the topic about prosecutions and that sort of thing, I just wanted to make sure you're aware. I had a friend, he owned horses that I used to help him care for. His name was Pat Sakai. He lived up in Dedido, and he had the Sleepy Valley Ranch. And Pat was a former chef who had, sort of semi-retired on Guam, just a really, really nice man. And Pat was stabbed multiple times and bludgeoned and murdered at the end of January. And from that time until now, we're almost April, there's been no arrests, there's been no anything. And I just find it massively frustrating. There's this gag that nowadays nobody ever gets convicted on Guam unless they confess. And this was not some elegant Day of the Jackal assassination. This was about as crude as it could get. And I just can't imagine that someone could get away with that we have no ability to find who did it. It's just so frustrating for me. And I've talked to other people, that say that they've been talking to the chief about it, and there's just nothing happening. And so my question is that, in your long experience, how often does this happen? How routine is this for just a completely crude murder to go, no suspects, no charges, no evidence, no nothing to see here, folks, move along? And that's what it feels like.
Yeah, well, it does happen, Tom. And I wouldn't be able to give you any statistics, but I know over the years there have been unsolved murders. And I remember when this one was reported in the paper, it sounded like some very deranged person who just tripped off, didn't it?
It did to me too. Yes,
Yeah.
it did. Particularly when Pat was just the sweetest guy. Pat wouldn't hurt a fly. He rescued dogs. He rescued insects. Pat rescued everything. You know, he was just the sweetest guy. And I just can't imagine someone ever getting mad enough at Pat to do that. And furthermore, I can't imagine that there was just no evidence. There's just nothing. Pat didn't even know that many people. You know, just endlessly frustrating for me. I feel so sorry for Pat. But I don't want to take a lot of your time with this, but it feels like this happens too often, and I don't know why. I don't know if this is an Attorney General thing, if this is a GPD thing. I'm just not smart enough about it to know where.
It's a GPD thing, Tom.
Ah, that's bad.
Yeah.
Well, all right. Thank you. Thank you for entertaining me, sir. I'm very grateful.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, Tom. See you later.
Sir, bye.
All right, Dr. Tom Pohl, I think still the territorial veterinarian for a little while longer. Okay, next on the card, Mark Chotfris versus Garcetti, and it's Garcetti versus Ceballos, which is a Supreme Court case. Supreme Court hears appeal from fired GPD Colonel Chotfris. Fired Guam Police Department Colonel Mark Chotfris interfered with an ongoing investigation when he disregarded the police chief's instructions and talked about it publicly, Assistant Attorney General Marianne Wolaschuk told the Supreme Court of Guam on Tuesday. Officer Chotfris committed insubordination when he defied the chief's orders not to speak to the press. He broke other departmental rules and policies, and he was appropriately disciplined for his conduct. That's quotes from the Assistant Attorney General handling that case before the Supreme Court. Chotfris wants justices to give him his job back after the Civil Service Commission and the Superior Court of Guam agreed with the police department's decision to fire him in 2016 for insubordination. You may remember this. It was the 4th of July. People were shooting off fireworks down in Agate, Bloodtown. Chotfris is an agateer. He pulled up in his car, started hollering and swearing at the police officers that had arrived at the scene to deal with the firecrackers. And the rest of it stemmed from that. The case is related to December 24, 2016, it's Christmas Eve, in Haggett, which involved officers responding to a report of fireworks in the village. The incident was captured in part on a police officer's body camera. Whoa, that's why you got to watch out for these body cameras, you know. Video footage shows Chotfris, who lives in the village, yelling at responding officers, questioning their actions. Instead of termination, Chotfris has asked the Supreme Court to refer the matter back to the police department for other punishment. How about this? 20 lashes over the little finger with a wet noodle. Wouldn't that be more appropriate? His Supreme Court appeal states there's no proof he violated an order by the chief, and he argues his constitutional right to free speech was violated when he was punished for speaking to the media. Well, what about the First Amendment, by gosh? Yeah. Justices heard arguments in the appeal during an hour-long hearing Tuesday morning. Some quotes here from the justices when they're on the bench. Assistant Attorney General Wolaschuk said the police department was investigating several issues in the Haggett case, including the possible illegal use of regulated fireworks and the actions of the responding officers. Chotfris was disrespectful to the chief. He disclosed confidential information, and he doesn't even work at the commercial port. These are things that can affect the way investigation goes. We don't know what would have happened with the investigation had he not interfered. Chotfris's attorney, F. Randall Cunliffe, told justices the officers who responded to the fireworks complaint were breaking the law and violating the Constitution by conducting illegal searches without probable cause. He said the police video showed footage of Chotfris was being widely circulated and needed to be responded to. Now, tie your finger around that. Needed to be responded to. Quote, it may be the first time a high-ranking police officer came out and said he visually saw police officers violating the Constitution of the United States. Cunliffe said, I think he deserves an award, not to be punished and not to be terminated. They should give him a gold watch or a medal. Wolischuk said Chotfris told the Civil Service Commission he spoke to the media to salvage his reputation and do some damage control. All right, now, Jose, I know you're on the phone, but can you turn on the Law and Order notebook? Yeah, so he said, his lawyer said that the video of Chotfris was circulated and needed to be responded to. And then when Chotfris went to the Civil Service Commission, he said, I had to speak to the media, quote, to salvage my reputation and do some damage control. Yeah, now here's the law. It's a case called Garcetti versus Ceballos. And Garcetti versus Ceballos says that a police officer speaking as a citizen on a matter of public concern has a First Amendment right to freedom of speech and won't be punished for exercising that right. A police officer speaking in the line of duty, not about a public concern, but about his own situation on the job, does not have that First Amendment protection. And that's exactly what Chotfris admitted before the Civil Service Commission. Okay, so when the chief said, I don't want you talking to you this about the media, he was absolutely correct for the reasons that Wolischuk mentioned. You're going to screw up the investigation. But Chotfris said, I got to clear my name. I've got to explain this because I look bad. Garcetti versus Ceballos, no First Amendment protection there. So I'm predictions. Yogi told us predictions are always hard, especially when they're about the future. But I'm predicting that Chotfris is going to lose this appeal. You know, this guy has bounced around so many times and appears to be coated with Teflon because no matter what happened to him, it never seemed to stick. I think this time it might very well stick.
There is precedent.
Yeah. We had somebody calling here. Was it Mark Chotfris, Jose?
I don't think so, but I just wanted to comment about the state of the GPD and the chief of police right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, how it could be better.
This is what the caller said?
Mm.
Wow. Yeah, that's a really strong argument.
It was strong.
Yeah, but I haven't done my own investigation, but I think the chief still has his motorcycle. But there's just no telling how effective patrol checks can be on your own motorcycle when you're the chief of police.
Now, with if there is a new administration, does the chief of police lose that position or ask to resign, or is that until he wants to resign?
He doesn't have to resign, but the incoming governor can fire him. So the way it's always worked ever since I've been around here. The incoming administration comes in, the executives in the outgoing administration resign. Sometimes they'll stay on to help the incoming governor get started if the incoming governor requests it. But the positions like the chief of police are at will. There's no job protection there at all. So the chief has no expectation of tenure, which I'm kind of glad of. I hope the next one is a little bit more effective. I hope the next one just, starts out and hits the ground running right from the get-go. and that if there are any cover-ups, he would find out about them right from the get-go. Yeah, our police department is in sad shape. The Attorney General's office, according to anonymous sources, is in bad shape. We've got 9 prosecutors instead of 25. So even if we catch the bad guys, it's going to be very difficult to get them prosecuted. We have an election coming up in November. We need to pay very close attention to how we exercise our rights as citizens. And, of course, I'll be here to give you a hand with that all the way along the line. But for now, all I can say is, let's go, Brandon.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Twisters rip the Big Easy. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. At least one person dead, several injured in a tornado that touched down in New Orleans last night.
Well, you could hear the wind coming through. I put my family in the bathroom. As soon as we got in the bathroom, all of our ears popped, and you just knew, you knew what it was.
A man in Araby says he was lucky his house survived with broken windows, but says his neighborhood looks like Ukraine. Several houses without roofs, a church and a handful of businesses reported destroyed. Tornadoes also touching down in Alabama, as many as 20 homes damaged in Moundville, south of Tuscaloosa. 1 month into the Russian invasion, a reported shift in the fighting in Ukraine.
Ukrainian forces now on the offensive, fighting to take back territory. A big victory in a key suburb west of the capital, Kyiv. Ukrainian forces claiming they took it back in a counter-offensive. It comes amid reports Russian troops are becoming increasingly demoralized and weakened. Russian media briefly reporting 10,000 soldiers have been killed, then backtracked, claiming it was a hacked report. There are also reports 1,500 Russian tanks, arms, and vehicles have been destroyed.
Fox's Jonathan Hunt in Lviv in western Ukraine. Ukraine also says Russian military forces have destroyed a laboratory at the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The state agency responsible for the Chernobyl exclusion zone says that lab contained highly active radioactive samples. Supreme Court nominee Ketanji Brown Jackson forcefully defending her record as a federal judge in her confirmation hearing Tuesday and her views on the Constitution.
I believe that the Constitution is fixed in its meaning. I believe that it's appropriate to look at the original intent, original public meaning of the words.
She faces more questioning by the Senate's Judiciary Committee today. America is listening to Fox News.
Get all of your favorite Fox News podcasts ad-free on Apple Podcasts with Fox News Podcasts Plus. From Trey Gowdy, the Fox News Rundown, Will Kane, Brian Kilmeade, and so much more. Go to foxnewspodcasts.com for all the details. The Fox News Rundown, a contrast of perspectives you won't hear anywhere else. Your daily dose of news twice a day. Featuring insight from top newsmakers, reporters, and Fox News contributors. Listen and subscribe now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com. New from the Fox News Podcasts Network, Dana Perino, co-host of the 5 and America's Newsroom on Fox News Channel, returns to the world of audio with a new limited-time podcast, Everything Will Be Okay with Dana Perino. Building off the success of her best-selling book of the same name, Dana provides an unequaled brand of advice built on real-life experience and interviews experts and individuals that make a difference in the lives of others. Subscribe and listen now by going to foxnewspodcasts.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
The president headed to Europe this morning.
President Biden will attend the NATO summit, a group of 7 meeting, and go to a session of EU heads of state. White House Secretary Jen Psaki cited unity as the reason for the trip, as the Western allies are expected to discuss a response if Russia uses chemical, biological, cyber, or nuclear weapons. The president's trip to Belgium will be his 3rd overseas journey since taking office. Following the summit, President Biden will head to Warsaw for a bilateral meeting on Saturday with the Polish president, where he'll thank him for his country's efforts to shelter Ukrainian refugees and discuss the humanitarian crisis that Russia's unprovoked war on Ukraine has created. Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
Press Secretary Jen Psaki staying behind in Washington, not on the trip. She's tested positive again for COVID-19. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton posting on social media that she too has tested positive, but says she's feeling fine with only mild-like cold symptoms. Scientists are closely watching the BA2 coronavirus variant, fearing it may soon push cases higher in the U.S., just as it